This week is Rosh Hashanah, B'ezrat Hashem, and Shabbat Shuvah this week. This year is Parashas HaAzinu, the shir that Moshe gave over to the Jewish people, a veritable history lesson of what's going to go wrong, and the fact that Hashem, he testifies to this, that it's predicted, it's going to happen in the future. And there's a lot of important statements, very important statements, that really have to be understood and examined. One of the first emphasizing the importance of learning history, as Rosh points out, that we have to look back and see what was taking place. Zechor Yemos Olam, right? Binu Shnos Dor V'Dor Sha'al V'Yichav Yagedecha. Right, that you have to remember the days of the world, right? Understand all the generations. You should ask your father, as Rashi points out. Avicha usually refers to the Nevi'im, the prophets, right? Learning Tanakh, which we don't do enough of today, and the elders, right? That refers to the Chachamim, the wise people of every generation, and this can't be emphasized enough. The importance of history cannot be emphasized enough. Those who forget are doomed to repeat, etc., etc. This goes on. There's all kinds of examples of this. Right now we're going through a situation all over again that resembles Europe, the anti-Semitism. Last night I received an email from somebody that a secular Jew, a similar Jew. I don't get this very often, but once in a while it's a reminder of what's out there, what we're dealing with. And it was basically in response to a video that I had made, I think over a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, over at this point in time, that it was interviewed, and I guess it was recently posted on another site, someplace else, and it was basically talking about the importance of Eretz Yisrael, the importance of Aliyah, the importance of what's going on today, not to continue on with the sheet of the thinking of the Meraglim, the spies. I don't exactly remember the entire content. It was a long time ago, but this person was very much put off by it, and basically a tremendous example of what we would call a self-hating Jew. I mean, the pro-Palestinian, anti-Jewish approach that this person was throwing my way, and not in the nicest of terms, basically is an example of somebody who thinks that by separating himself from the Jewish people, from the history of the Jewish people, and siding with the enemies once again. I just read about a very wealthy billionaire today who did exactly this back in World War II, and how he has no recriminations whatsoever, no sense of guilt, no sense of remorse for how he turned on his own people, even this very day, and basically, someone even call him a sociopath because he's so insensitive to the damage he does to other people in the name of his own gain in the end, right? And people do this thinking that somehow making the separation of themselves from the Jewish people, that they're going to be safe when everything seems to fall apart. And as has been noted before, that anti-Semitism is not a form of racism. Racism is based upon differences. Anti-Semitism, a lot of the time, basically results in places where the assimilation was the greatest, where the Jews tried to integrate themselves the most amongst the Gentile society. And people think as if somehow by assimilating, by taking an anti-Jewish, anti-Israeli stance, by siding with the enemy, that somehow they're going to be protected. And historically that was not the case. People did the same thing in World War II, the same thing in Spain, even those who were forced to convert or feign conversion. Well, the ones who feign conversion very often remain quite loyal, but those who actually converted in the end very often became the targets of virulent anti-Semitism in the end, because God runs the world. That's the point. God runs the world. And because God runs the world, He runs history, and history is patterned. History is patterned specifically for the sake of teaching us what goes wrong when we do certain things wrong. As we saw in Parashas Kisavo, last week's Parashah, Yisav V'Yelech as well, Hester Panim, all these things, but it's all the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not random. History is not random. If you hold history as random, then you can hide. You can do whatever you want. You can follow the laws of nature. It's safer over here. But we see it's not true. History shows it's not true. But for those people who forget, who do not learn, do not take the point, make the point of Zechor Yemos Olam, to understand the importance of history, to learn from it, then they don't learn the lessons. They put themselves in harm's way. There was once this story still exists, but it's a true story, of somebody during World War II who was in the Warsaw Ghetto. I assume he was a secular Jew when the entire war began. He was not a religious Jew, but he was held up in the Warsaw Ghetto, and he was one of the remaining survivors, or at least those remained to survive until the end, but were eventually killed when the Nazis actually broke through. But they found the bottle. They found the bottle, and inside was a note from this particular person, and he was keeping a diary of the final days. In the final days, he began to ask himself the question, why? Why is all this happening? Because he was waxing philosophical at a moment when he realized his death was imminent, and the situation became clear to him that it was an unrealistic situation. It was completely absurd why a people who had better things to do than pick on a small, unarmed, usually user-friendly and helpful nation. Because the Jews, wherever they go, they always help the economy. For the most part, they're honest, doing what they're supposed to do, and they fit in. Even the religious Jews do the best they can not to rock the boat. So, what's the point? Why sacrifice the war effort and try to exterminate the Jewish people? He didn't understand this. It makes sense to him. The money, the war effort, the manpower, it didn't make sense to him. And day after day, he questioned this until eventually he came to the conclusion this is not natural. This is supernatural. Lamala minateva. It didn't make sense to him. And his final entry, according to what the story says, are the words Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Shem Echad. Hear, O Lord, right? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Meaning, he understood that this could only be the result of God running the world, and God himself would only do this if the Jewish people stop fulfilling their mission as an Or L'Goyim. He came to this conclusion through the Hester Panim. In Kabbalah, we have an expression, Hester Panim Zegilui Panim. The hiding of God's face, it's the revealing of God's face, because usually, very often, through the negative, you can actually see the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and eventually understand what it's doing. That's what the pasuk says over here. Later on, it says, there's a pasuk that says, when Moshe is giving out to Duchacha, so he says, Sur Yoladecha Teshi Vatishkach El Mechalecha. Right? The rock that gave birth to you, you weakened, and you forgot the Almighty who bore you, right? Who gave birth to you, right? And the Nefesh HaChaim explains this. What do you mean? How is it possible that you can weaken the rock? How do the Jewish people weaken God? Chas v'chalila, God is omniscient. God is omnipotent. He's totally beyond anybody's effect and impact. What do you mean we weakened the hand of God, so to speak? Well, likewise, there's a pasuk in Tehillim that we say, Tnu Oz Elokim, give strength to God. And the Zohar explains what that means. In order for free will to make a difference, in order for free will to have an impact on my separations and our judgment and our portion in the world to come, there has to be real consequences. It has to be that evil intentions can result in evil actions. You have to understand that in the end, everything is from God. Everything is orchestrated. Everything works out completely according to judgment. But at least it gives the impression that we can, in fact, weaken God. So the Zohar explains. When the Jewish people do mitzvahs, when they learn Torah, they're behaving in a holy way, then God acts as if he's strengthened. He acts stronger, so to speak. And this is what the spies were saying. The spies were worried about going into the land of Israel because they're stronger than him, as the Gemara points out. Stronger than him, meaning not that in essence is stronger than God, because they saw what God can do and they understood who God was. But they said that since God acts as if we give him strength, and we can see that we ourselves are not holding on the proper spiritual level,